Hello, 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 and welcome to the Enricher Business Circle. I'm your host, Rodrika Bennett. In an era that is defined by rapid AI adaptation and complex workforce changes, a critical question emerges today. How do we lead with both efficiency and still stay human or have human presence? My guest today is an expert in exactly that. She is the founder of Steep Leadership LLC, where she helps organizations to strengthen ethics, leadership, and human decision making. With over a decade of experience across countless industries and multiple credentials, she brings a profound practical and ethical lens to the future of work. Please give a warm welcome to Lisa. Lisa, welcome.
Thank you so much. Glad to be here.
So, Lisa, I know with us, many times we start out with the why. So, what is the why behind steep leadership?
Well, the implication behind steeped leadership is it's steeped in purpose and ethics, and it comes from real world wisdom gained through many great mentors who went before me and poured into me, and also from a lot of learning from my own mistakes and just from living the HR roles that I've been in and kind of
Mhm.
learning as you go. So, what I want to do is help smooth the road for others so they don't have to learn from the bumps and bruises that I've already learned from. I can share some of that wisdom and provide guidance to people just like some of my mentors in the past have done for me.
Mm. So, what when you developed the steep leadership, was there something like in a career change for you, or you just had a aha moment and dived into leveraging and building this organization?
I spent a lot of years working for various organizations and both small individual companies and also large corporate enterprises. And I've always had that side business of consulting and helping wherever I can. But I
Mhm.
decided it was a good time to go and focus on that full time just because the needs have grown and it was just the right time.
I think that's it's great that you said that about you working with different size industries, because with your experience across healthcare, manufacturing, retail, and more, what are some common challenges that organizations have faced or are facing when they're trying to strengthen workplace ethics and leadership?
I think one of the biggest challenges is sometimes we get to moving so fast that we don't slow down enough to think about the long-term impacts of decisions.
Mm.
And that takes a level of intentionality. And certainly in the age of AI, where we are trying to rapidly integrate new tools that we don't always fully understand, even at this point, into our workflows to try to improve efficiency, sometimes people get lost in that transition. And we don't always think about the impacts that we have on individuals and individual roles. And unfortunately, in some organizations, I have seen a lot of trust eroded in the way that AI was pushed into the organization without a lot of thoughtfulness behind it, without a lot of governance behind it, and without just the thought that really needed to go into it to make sure it was a smooth transition. And so I try to work with organizations who are in those transition periods to make it as smooth as possible.
Okay. So it seems like from your experience that AI has had some kind of impact on the company's culture and a lot of different elements for those who did not know how to implement it.
Absolutely. And it goes both ways. I've seen early adopters who rushed too soon and didn't have things in place to make that work with everybody's interests and input in mind. But I've also seen the opposite, where companies have been very slow to integrate any of the AI tools, but also were slow to discuss it with their employees. And so then what happens instead is when we want to improve our own personal efficiency, people might go and use their phone and look something up on Chat GPT because no one has said they can't. And I have seen instances where people have put secure information, confidential information into
Mhm.
open AI platforms because no one said they couldn't. No one said it was a problem, and they're trying to be the best employee they can be and do the work as quickly as possible. And so they're trying to improve their own personal work, but at the detriment of the safety of the organization. Because when someone does that, there's no IT systems in place to capture that, know where the information went, and safeguard it. So there's a lot of problems on both sides of the fence. Those who are adopting it early without all the proper structure in place and the right voices being heard, but then also on the other end where you're slow to adopt, but you also just don't address the elephant in the room. Because AI is definitely here and integrated into many workplaces, whether they understand that or not.
And I definitely love the fact that you said that, because I know in 2022, one of the very first things I did was create a internal AI policy and a external AI policy, letting
Mhm.
my team know, hey, this is what you can use on ChatGPT and this is what you can't use on ChatGPT.
Mhm.
And then also, I think that it's imperative to train your staff on it, because
Absolutely.
for use basis, so that everybody's output is similar when it
Mhm.
comes to like that brand voice. And I think that some companies aren't really training and putting in policies right now. They're just sitting on the fence.
Yes, you're absolutely right.
So which kind of lets me go to my next question. Um, Around AI, how do you see AI impacting human decision in the workplace right now?
Honestly, I'm seeing a lot of cognitive debt creep in
Okay.
where people are not using their critical thinking skills in the way they would have had to have in the past because
Mhm.
they're relying on a tool to make the decision for them. And
Mm,
that's very problematic when the AI tools still hallucinate a significant amount of times. And if you don't have just the right inputs and just the right prompts, then it may not give you the best decision or outcome. And so AI has its place, but it's important to keep a human in the loop who is using critical thinking and creativity that AIs were never built to do. That those are very human functions. That critical thinking with the, all of the things that we learn through culture about what's acceptable and what's not, and through interactions with people that are impacted by these decisions, like how is this going to land?
mhm.
The tool isn't meant to look at all of those aspects. It's really meant to analyze data and predict likely outcomes. It's not meant to analyze things in the way that a human would.
And I'm glad you said that, because I feel like a person who is a critical thinker is more successful with AI than a
Mhm.
person who just put in a random prompt when it comes to AI.
Absolutely. And, the first prompt doesn't usually get you the right answer or the best answer. Sometimes it's two or three iterations down the road before you're like, okay, now that's more like what I'm looking for. And
Mhm.
then it gives you a good baseline to start from. But if you really want to have a great product, a great, maybe it's something you're writing, whatever content you're looking for from the AI, you need to add that uniquely human touch to it. If you
Mhm.
just accept it, copy and paste, and move on without reading through and making sure that everything is in there that needs to be in there, then you're not giving the best product or service.
Yeah, because I definitely see nowadays, like when I'm looking at social media, I can tell when people's posts are created by AI, because it doesn't match their brand voice anymore.
Mhm. Yeah, that
Um,
happens a lot.
it does truly happens a lot, and I wonder, like, do they feel like AI is going to attract more people to engage, or do they feel like if their brand voice will actually attract more people?
I think sometimes it's also we're trying to do so much with so little
Mhm.
that it's kind of those lazy shortcuts. Not that anyone's trying to be lazy, but you have so many things on your plate. If AI can take one thing off of your plate, why not let it?
Right.
But a lot gets lost when you do that without giving it the proper, look over and review and making sure it is in your voice and it is what you're really wanting and wanting to put forth, especially on social media.
So I have this thing where I say that we should use 80% AI and still remain 20% human, where AI is doing 80% of the work, and we still need to have that human eye to go across it at least 20% of the time. And I wanted to get your take on, how do you feel that organizations should basically balance the adoption of AI while still preserving that unique human skill in the workplace?
Well, it's interesting that you say that because I hear some people that are in the AI space now starting to talk in words and phrases that have me concerned, because being in human resources for a lot of years, human is the key in human resources. And when I hear people talk about digital employees and biological employees,
Hmm.
that concerns me. We're a lot more than just biology. You
Right.
know, human is defined more than just by our physical makeup. And so I want everything that we do to remain human and to be augmented and assisted and amplified by the AI, not replaced. So
Hmm.
I think it's very important that the strategies that organizations are using so that they can amplify the skills that humans have that are uniquely human without replacing them.
I definitely agree, because I always tell my team that AI is meant to enhance your work, not to replace you or you doing your work. So
Mhm.
even if they have a email campaign and they decide to use AI to develop their campaign, it's
Mhm.
their job to go back through that campaign and make sure that that campaign match whatever brand it's assigned to, and to
Right.
make sure that the brand voice is correct. We're not just copying and pasting it and giving it to a client. So I definitely agree with that, because a lot of times AI will use words that are not commonly used words,
Mhm.
and people don't think about it. They be like, "Oh, well, this sounds more educated, or it sounds smarter," but these are not words you normally use.
Mhm.
So that's my biggest thing. And then with a lot of, when I look at the marketplace, many of the people who are on social media, they are like honestly, their reading and educational level is not that of a high end level.
Mhm.
Everybody didn't go to college, so you need to make sure that anybody can understand whatever you're saying, versus trying to use words for only the academy.
Mhm. Yeah, if you want clarity in your message, then you need to speak to your audience at the level that they're at.
Right. And I find that a lot of times AI speaks at a higher level.
Mhm.
And that's why it sounds robotic, because it's speaking from more of a textbook level than a
Right.
actual person level.
Right. And in so many of our businesses, relationship is what makes the business work. I mean,
Mhm.
just like with what you do, you don't do this with just AI, you do this with people. And that human connection can't be replaced by a tool. And when people start to do that in various organizations, it's very noticeable,
Mhm.
and it doesn't leave the customer with a good feeling. Even as I understand the need for AI agents in some organizations that have difficulty hiring, and they implement that to try to make things quicker for the customer. But it
Mhm.
also is sometimes more frustrating for the customer. I have more than once talked to an AI and said, I need a human because you're not understanding me. And it took a while to finally get that person on the line who was able to quickly resolve the issue. So it didn't necessarily save me any time. It got a quicker answer to the call, but it didn't save any time in actually getting my issue resolved.
And I totally agree. I had to deal with that with FedEx last week, because they have integrated more AI into their website, and it was horrible. It literally took me almost 45 minutes
Oh,
to get through to a actually human. And then by the time the human got on, it was close to almost the end of the day for them. And that department had closed. So the department couldn't do nothing until the next morning, because it took AI so long to actually get me to a human.
right. I think there's a place for AI. I think we're not quite there with a lot of it and some of the uses that we're trying to use it for.
Mhm.
I'm not against AI. I actually use it myself quite regularly. But I do think that people need to understand it's not a replacement for human thinking.
So, and with you saying that you've guided a lot of executives through like high stake workforce challenges, do you
Mhm.
have like a memorable example and key lesson from it around AI?
Most of the investigations that I have dealt with didn't deal a lot with AI yet, except for in fabricated evidence. And that is a challenge because whether it's trying to get a refund when you wouldn't otherwise be owed a refund, or whether it's trying to maybe get someone in trouble for a text that you're alleging they sent and they did not. AI can be very convincing and look very real in what it generates. And so that has been a challenge in some of the investigations I've dealt with.
Okay.
There are some incidents too where people are using AI to bully and harass
Mhm.
people. So for every good use that AI has, there are equal and opposite uses, unfortunately.
I definitely agree because I know some people are scared to leverage AI because of that, and they
Mhm.
have fears that there's going to be a lot of negativity behind it. But I know there's a presentation I do about it, AI, the good, the bad, and the ugly.
Mhm.
And I honestly feel that if you can take that much time to think of something harmful and put energy into planning something harmful for somebody, then how much time or how much good could you actually take that time and do
I
on the
know.
opposite? So
Would it
I definitely agree.
Yeah, I have a similar talk. It's the promises, pitfalls, and perils of AI. That's how I framed it. But yeah, we're on the same track with that. It can be used for wonderful purposes, but it all depends on the intent of the user.
So can you talk let's talk more about like the your formal training and certifications, and how are you actually using them now?
So I am a senior certified professional with the Society of Human Resource Management, and I'm also an MD 110 certified EEO investigator, which is Equal Employment Opportunity Investigator. And so when I do investigations, I use both of those certifications and the skills that I learned from them in those investigations, and they sort of balance each other out. On the federal side, federal sector has very specific requirements and things that are needed in an investigation. But
Mhm.
the SHRM side of things, the Society of HR Management, they focus more on the people side. And
Okay.
so I feel like in my investigations, I balance those two things. I make sure that the documentation is there, that the right questions are asked to get to, the legal issues that can arise, and that we're getting the appropriate documentation, documenting it well, and doing all of those things. But at the same time, I try to remember that every person involved in an investigation is a person who has their own struggles. And even when people make mistakes, they're still human. Nobody's perfect.
Mhm.
They all deserve to be treated with dignity and respect.
I definitely agree. And I see that you kind of like when you're investigating, you go off of more so of the environment that you're investigating when it comes to how you investigate.
Mhm.
And I want to kind of segue to my final question for you.
Okay.
Um, for business owners who are getting ready to use AI, or if they're currently using AI, what are some steps that you would recommend for them to make sure they have in place for training like their teams and things like that so that they can be safe and follow some type of AI policy?
You know, the thing about most organizations that I have worked with, even if they have an AI policy, it's already outdated, or it doesn't match all of the realities of how AI is working today, because
Mhm,
AI is advancing quicker than we can even keep up with. So if
mhm,
you write a policy in a year, it's probably not adequate. Unless, of course, what you're doing is not trying to, cover every platform and every use case. You need to have a general framework for what is expected of your employees, when to use it and when not to, and explain, what your overarching theme or idea behind the AI usage is in the organization. If you're using it simply to be more efficient, well, what does that look like? Because you don't want people to shortcut and provide bad service or a bad product because you said you wanted faster. And so I'm just going to give you faster. and I'm just going to defer to the AI. If what you want is to still give a good product or give good service, but not waste as much time, perhaps, reading emails, maybe you use it to sort your emails, maybe you use it to automate certain responses or certain things. You need to understand that if you don't say something about what the expectations are, your employees are going to use it how they see fit. But if that's not what you want, if you want to have some guardrails, you need to be open and honest about what those guardrails should look like. And it doesn't mean you have a rigid policy, and it doesn't mean you talk about it one time. You don't put it in a handbook and then call it good. And it's not something that should be deferred to an HR department or to an IT department. It needs to be a whole leadership approach so that each leadership team and department can input what their concerns are and what their expectations are, and you can come up with a holistic plan.
I love it. So do you feel that they should kind of do like a AI ethics audit first so that they can develop their policy and see how they're currently using it or how they want to use AI?
That's a great idea, because most leaders that I talk to actually don't understand how it's being used already in their organization. Many will assume, well, we don't use AI. Okay, well, maybe you as a company do not, but do your employees use it? And if they do, how are they using it now? And is it what you want? Because if you haven't said you don't want it to be used, they're not intentionally trying to do something, malicious. They're usually trying to continually improve themselves so they look good on the next performance review, and they can do what they need to do to get their job done efficiently. And so people will use it on their own, and that can create problems for the organization when they're using an open AI platform with personal, identifiable information or trade secrets or other things that really need to be safeguarded and put maybe into a closed AI system, or, change so that the details are not there if someone were to look at that OpenAI data later. So there's definitely some good idea between, auditing what they're doing now and also developing a plan going forward.
Awesome. Well, Lisa, thank you again for taking your time to join the show on today. And I definitely love the feedback that you offered to the audience as well. And for those who are listening or watching, you can go to steepedleadership.com and follow up with Lisa if you have other AI ethic questions around company culture or anything like that. And for all the listeners for today, I'm glad you tuned in. Until next time, continue to enrich yourself and educate yourself. Have a great day.
Thank you.